Hello everyone and welcome to Law Day. Today I'm joining you in front of the place that we've gotten to call home for the last 4 years. And as wonderful as it would be to be able to see all of your beautiful faces at Law Day, today it's going to look a little different, which to be honest is kind of nice because if my jokes start bombing, I don't have to listen to the awkward silence that follows. But even if I'm not in the top half of Zach and Laney's rankings, it's really an honor to be able to speak for everyone here today. As we look back at our high school experience, yes, we've had the normal ups and downs, but our senior year has been nothing short of special. I mean, remember when we thought that the craziest thing to happen with us would be the potential of lead in the water? 2020 had other plans, and I know that it's easy to look outside and see all that's happening and be swept away by a wave of pessimism, but I want to do something a little different today. Maybe there's a way we can look at this in a more positive light, and I want to pose a question to each and every one of us. As graduates of the Legal Studies Academy, how am I prepared to better a broken world? And to answer this question, I want to go back. Time travel through our last 4 years here. Look at some of the good memories and abstract a lesson from each year and how we can piece that answer together. But let's start with our freshman year when we came in, chasing after Pokemon Go and freezing when Black Beetles came on. We were scared of the nicest lady ever, Miss Hill. And in Miss Duncan's class, we learned which of our friends would and would not survive a nuclear fallout. We learned from Mr. Pratt that he actually turned into the Hulk when there's yogurt in the room. But freshman year, we learned a lot more than that. We learned how to take people from different backgrounds with different stories and different creeds from all over Virginia Beach and place them together under the same roof and make it work. We learned how to make unity out of diversity. And that's the lesson from freshman year. And as we look out to the broader society, what is happening right now? The same question is being asked in the form of protest. Can we make unity out of diversity? And rather than throwing our hands up and saying it's all outside of our control, what did we learn here as freshmen? That we can make unity out of diversity, but how? It's in making relationships with those that are around you. You got to meet new kids, make new best friends that you're going to know for the rest of your life, that you're going to carry through college. It's those relationships that bind together a social fabric, that bring unity out of diversity. And LSA always sold us on this vision of a family, and maybe day in and day out, that wasn't obvious, but when did it become evident? It was when a member of that family got in a terrible accident. When we heard about Sidonia, this community rallied like never before with students like Nick Callis and faculty like Mr. Henry doing what they could to help her and her family. When a broad array of questions confront us, at the end of the day, it's the relationships that you make that bring it together. So as our society asks these social questions of can we bring unity out of diversity, we have the answer. It's yes, through relationships. And then we became sophomores. And this was the year Fortnite took over. This was the year that we were told we would be suspended if we flipped water bottles. And this was the year of the infamous power outage and fire alarm. But something also very interesting happened this year with us. We all started to forge our own identity. You know, we came into this high school, and LSA had always told us that kids in the Legal Studies Academy are the most evolved. From our state championship soccer and debate teams to the class president of all 4 years. What's up, Trinity? LSA students get involved and they pursue excellence well. Well, each of us did this as sophomores when we got our identity and our footing in. We chose something and we specialized in it. And that was the lesson of sophomore year. And as we graduate in the same position where these balls of potential that can go out and do just about anything in the world. But what we're going to do is we're going to pick something and specialize in it. Because there's so much talent bursting at the seams in this class, but our talent can only be recognized to the degree that we're willing to specialize in. And this process has already begun. Look at our wonderful athletes like Jack and Annie, our artists like Keaton and Emma Jean, our politicians like Lou Cabone, the journalists like Sahara, and even the shirt you see me wearing right now is made by our own entrepreneur, Lisa Engel. But this process of specialization has already occurred, and it's how you can bring forth your destiny and calling in this life. And that's what we learned in our second year here. But then before we knew it, we were upperclassmen. And this was the year that we had our individuality called out of us in ethics and debate through Miss V, Miss Disher, and Mr. Pratt. This was the year of the Tide Pod, and when kids started to finally use mango air freshener in the bathroom. This was the year that Mr. Butler forced us to grow in such understanding, but this was also the year when everything started to ramp up. APs increased, our homework got longer. We learned that we actually had to apply to college. And when this all happened, a metaphorical contract was slapped on the table and we each had to answer. Do or die, sink or swim, drip or drown. And we can either grow into the person that we were meant to be or sit back in the comfort of mediocrity. Now, coming at you live from 135th in the class rankings, maybe the dichotomy I'm painting is too absolute, but the principles remain the same. That to bear the responsibility of learning, of changing a world that's screaming your name to better of it, it requires something called grit. In junior year, we learned grit. We learned how to take on problems that seem beyond us and solve them. I remember Mr. Spruill always talking about positive stress, and man, was that a prophetic insight. We learned about the greatest generation, but what made them so great, it wasn't that they just went through the Great Depression and World War II, but they triumphed in them. And man, I would not wish this senior year upon anyone. I'm sure our kids will make jokes in their graduation speeches of, hey, at least we're not the class of 2020, but when they do, let's make sure they tell the whole story of how this was the class that went on to solve the greatest problems and those that come beyond. I don't know what the solutions to our biggest issues facing us today are. I didn't know the solutions to any of my math problems either, but I know how they will be found. It's through the grit that we learned as juniors here. That's how the world's going to begin to get changed. And then it all came together. Our fourth year here as seniors, it was our time. Some of us came to school late, some of us left school early, and some of us didn't come to school at all. We had plans for senior spring, for prom, for what was to come. But our vision was redirected. In Senior Project, what did we learn? We learned how to take all of the how, all of the information, all of the knowledge, but it gave us the why. Why does it all matter? It gave meaning to our education. And what was the lesson of senior year? We each learned that it all matters to the extent that you take your passion and your talent and give it to the service of others. Senior year was a time when we grew in that domain. We learned through Senior Project how to take what we're good at and give it to Virginia Beach, the community at large. And as I look out and I see a pessimistic world we're entering, what I can tell you is this. The world needs LSA graduates. They need people who can bring unity out of diversity by forming individual relationships. They need people who are willing to specialize and follow their destiny, to call forth meaning in their life. They need people who got grit, who can see beyond the problems that present us today. And most importantly, we need people who can take all of their talents and abilities and put them to the service of others. And when you look at these four pillars, it's going to carry each and every one of us in a different direction, and we all got it. It's going to take us maybe to different corners of the globe. It's going to take us to different careers, different callings, different paths. But at the end of the day, what's always going to bring us together? We still have no idea what the point of Patriot My Time was. But in all seriousness, don't mistake a different graduation for a broken high school experience. LSA was awesome. The relationships that I got to form with all of you guys, I will never forget, and I know you're not going to forget those friendships you made either. So in the words of the worst television character of all time, Andrew Bernard, I wish you knew you were in the good old days when you were actually in them. But we don't have to rest in this nostalgia. For as C.S. Lewis reminds us, there are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind. So thank you, class of 2020, and all the people who brought us here.